Am I still doing photography? This was a question that was posted in the comment section of my last video. So in this video, I thought I'd grab my tripod, go for a walk and try and address this question. Landscape photography for a while I feel has been really dropping in popularity, and this year it's been particularly brutal with the constant and rapid evolution of AI. It's really affecting my personal inspiration when it comes to taking landscape photography images. That said, I'm still finding myself heading out and taking images, which I have been doing over the past few months. I've just not felt the need to share them online. When you look at certain Facebook groups and lots of posts now, anyone that posts any fine art photography or any form of landscape photography that they've got a little bit creative with, the accusations quickly start coming in that what they've posted is not photography, it's some AI generated image. The problem we've got at the moment, I think, especially with the online communities, is trust. It's knowing if an image is authentic or not, and it's catching everybody out. Just the other day I was scrolling on social media, I came across this amazing image of a castle. I think it was in France, it could have been a chateau in a coastal location, and there was an amazing river as it led up to the castle. The image was composed really well, but on closer inspection I felt that the river was a little too perfect. The curves were absolutely spot on, they were perfect, and I thought to myself, yeah, this is AI. And as I looked at the top comments, I could see all these people putting in those comments, this is not photography, it's AI. But then I saw the response from the photographer that took the image, and it turns out it was a legitimate image. And it's just another case where AI has actually fooled me into thinking an image was AI, when in fact a photographer had gone to great effort to take that image. So the quick answer to this question is yes, I am still going out and taking images. However, over recent times I've just not been sharing them online, but I'm considering changing this in the near future and changing the way that I capture my images. So here's an interesting little gate in the middle of the field. There's no fence either side, and I don't think there's been a fence here for quite a while, but if we have a closer look at the sign, it says please close and fasten the gate. So we better sort that out, haven't we? We don't want anything escaping. There we go. As a landscape photographer, if you edit your images like many other people do with the Adobe system using Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, I'm sure you're already aware that AI is having an impact on your workflow, whether it's the denoise process in Lightroom or generative AI in Photoshop, which allows you to insert things into your images that previously were not there. We've also got the other end of the spectrum, such as creating images just plainly from text prompts. It's very hard to get away from AI at the minute, and the lines are blurring between what defines photography and what defines digital art. Sky replacement is a good example. If you were to replace your sky with an AI created sky, does that mean that your image is now digital art? Some will argue no, that person's still gone to that location to take that image. But what happens if that sky takes up 2/3 of the image, meaning that 2/3 of the result is generated by AI? Is that still photography? There's lots of grey areas here. Now there's also the small matter of mobile phone photography, which for me is a bit of a bigger matter. When I first got into mobile phone photography, I had a Huawei P20 Pro, and that phone let me control everything, the shutter speed, ISO, all that good stuff, and it gave me a 40 megapixel RAW file to play with in post-production. Nowadays, phones are much more powered by AI, but that said, I'm not going to be giving up my Google Pixel 7 phone anytime soon. I absolutely love that device for taking images, but I'm very mindful of the fact that there's a lot of software that's being powered behind the scenes to create the amazing images that it produces. So much like my last video, we are currently in the summer holiday, so I've selected a walking route that is away from the crowds. You might be able to see the top of that hill over there, which is Thorpe Cloud. There's a number of figures standing on top there. That's Dovedale, and I suspect that's very busy today. But I've selected a route which is a little bit quieter, and I'll put my route map on screen now if you're interested in exploring this little quiet area yourself. But what caught my attention this particular route is this bridge at the bottom there. I've not been here before, but hopefully there's a composition to be had down here. Now, where was I? Yes, mobile phone photography. As I just mentioned, going forward I am going to continue carrying my Google Pixel 7 phone, as I absolutely love that phone for photography. But I'm not going to say I'm never going to create any more videos on mobile phone photography. They're just going to be more occasional videos. I think going forward I'm going to be using a dedicated camera for the majority of the time, and especially for these videos. The way I'm going to be using it, however, is going to be a little bit different. So I'm now on the bridge that I was hoping to photograph, but just looking at the water flow below me, it's not really what I was expecting to find. I'm not seeing a decent viewpoint from the bottom, and there's nothing really exciting in the river like weirs or anything like that that's going to make this an interesting image. So I think I'll give this one a miss, but I've enjoyed the walk down here nonetheless. So you might already be getting the vibe in this video that maybe I'm a little bit anti-AI, and you'd be right there. And this is very much guiding my thoughts going forward with my own personal photography, which for me is going to be a massive change, because previously, over my time as a photographer, I've really enjoyed the post-processing process, but going forward, for the short term at least, I'm not going to be doing any of that, and I'm going to be trying to focus my efforts more in trying to craft my images out in the field and not post-producing them. Now, the obvious route for me to take here is probably shooting film, but I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan of shooting film for a number of reasons. Firstly, there's a cost. Film is getting more and more expensive, and mistakes ultimately are going to get very expensive as well, as you're wasting exposures. Also, I like to store my images digitally, and it feels counterproductive to shoot images onto film then scan them to a computer. I might as well just shoot them digitally in the first place. So what I'm going to do going forward, basically I'm going to be shooting JPEG. However, I'm very aware of the point that when you shoot JPEG, your images look very much like the camera manufacturer wanted them to look like, because they control the processing. However, if you ever dig in your camera settings, especially on a Fuji, you can see you do have a few creative controls. You can change settings in the highlights and the shadows and the colour. And I think there's also something to be said about crafting an image out in the field and nailing that exposure perfectly, rather than relying on your raw file and correcting your errors in post-production.